I'd been driving for nearly 8 hours when the GPS said I was only 12 minutes away. The sun was already dipping behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the last bit of light stretched across the road like long golden fingers, trying to hold on before night took over. I wasn't planning on being there that late. The plan was to check into the Airbnb around 3, drop my stuff off, and explore the trails nearby before sunset. But between the Friday traffic and 2 wrong turns on some unmarked roads, it was almost dark when I finally saw the sign, a crooked wooden post that read, Hollow Creek Retreat. I almost missed it. The dirt road looked like it hadn't seen another car in weeks. Trees leaned in close from both sides, their branches almost brushing my windshield. I slowed down and rolled the window halfway just to listen. Nothing, no crickets, no wind. Just silence so deep it hummed in my ears. The listing for the place looked amazing online. 5 stars, cozy cabin for one, surrounded by forest, with unique vintage decor. I remembered the photos clearly. Every wall had mirrors, ornate, gold-framed, some cracked, some foggy with age. The host said it gave the place a mystical charm. At the time, I thought it looked cool, atmospheric, like something straight out of a gothic movie. Now, driving down that lonely road, I wasn't so sure. When I finally reached the house, my headlights fell on a small 2-story cabin sitting alone in a clearing. The exterior was all dark wood, but what caught my eye was how the front windows glinted strangely, even in the fading light. I parked, stepped out, and the smell of pine and damp soil hit me. The place was quiet. Too quiet, I checked my phone. No bars, figures. There was a small welcome note taped to the door. Hi Mason, the key is under the flower pot. Feel free to make yourself at home. I won't be there during your stay, but if you need anything, just message me here. Evelyn. The name Evelyn sounded familiar. I remembered her profile picture. Black and white photo of a woman, maybe mid-40s, long hair, no smile. I unlocked the door. The inside smelled faintly of old perfume and something else. Maybe wood polish, or dust that hadn't been disturbed in a while. The entryway opened right into the living room, and yeah, the mirrors were everywhere. There were at least 12 of them, all different shapes and sizes, covering almost every wall. Oval ones, rectangular ones, one shaped like a sunburst with little glass shards radiating outward. The biggest one, above the fireplace, was so tall it almost touched the ceiling. And when I looked into it, something about my reflection looked off, not wrong exactly, just delayed, like a split-second lag between when I moved and when my reflection followed. I blinked, shook my head, and chalked it up to road fatigue. I set my bags down and started exploring. The kitchen looked normal, old but clean. There was a small dining table with a single chair, a rusted kettle on the stove, and a note on the fridge that said, "Please do not move the mirrors. Thank you." That line gave me pause. I smiled nervously, muttering to myself, "Weird rule, but okay." Upstairs, there was only one bedroom. The bed was queen-sized with white sheets tucked too tightly, like in a hotel. The entire wall across from the bed was a mirror, not multiple small ones, but a single. Seamless panel stretching corner to corner. I don't know if you've ever tried sleeping with a mirror facing you, but it's unsettling, especially when the light changes. I thought about draping something over it later, but decided to unpack first. After a quick shower, I heated up some leftovers I'd brought from home, sat on the couch and turned on the small lamp beside me. The mirror above the fireplace reflected the soft orange glow, but for a moment, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of movement behind me. When I turned, nothing, just the dark window and my own reflection staring back. That's when I noticed something odd. The reflection showed me sitting on the couch, but the lamp in the reflection was still off. My actual lamp was on. I froze. Then, as if catching up, the light in the mirror blinked on, a 1-second delay like before. Old glass, I muttered, trying to convince myself. It's old glass. Still, I turned the lamp off, got up, and went to bed earlier than usual. The first night I woke up around 2:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because the red numbers on the nightstand clock burned into my memory. I wasn't sure what woke me. The air felt colder, and the quiet had a weight to it. like the house was holding its breath. I glanced at the big mirror across from my bed. In the dim light from outside, I could just barely make out my own outline. My chest rising, falling. Then I saw something else, another shadow, standing beside my reflection. It wasn't moving, just there, tall and still. I shot upright, my pulse hammering. I turned my head to the side, but of course no one was there. The room was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, the second shadow was gone. That's when I decided to sleep with my back to it. But as I rolled over, I caught a glimpse, not of the shadow, but of me, still sitting upright in the reflection. For a split second, my reflection hadn't moved, and then it slowly turned its head and faced the opposite way. I turned the lamp on and didn't sleep again that night. The Mirror House, Part 2. The second day, morning sunlight spilled into the room, breaking the tension that had sat on my chest all night. For a moment, I convinced myself it had been nothing, just exhaustion, shadows, tricks of the light. But as I stepped out of bed, I realized something strange. The mirror opposite me had fogged up, not just from humidity, there was writing on it. Thin, almost childlike streaks formed words where someone, or something, had traced their finger through the condensation. Don't look too long. I stared at it, waiting for my mind to explain it away. Maybe it was something I'd written and forgotten, but the mirror had been clean last night. I was sure of it. I laughed under my breath, a dry, nervous sound that didn't feel real. "Funny prank, Evelyn," I muttered, though I knew the host wasn't there. Still, I snapped a photo on my phone. Tried to. The screen stayed black, no bars. No internet. No service? I shrugged it off, grabbed my keys, and decided to head into town. Maybe find a cafe with Wi-Fi. Text the host, grab breakfast, and get some air. But when I opened the front door, something stopped me cold. There were footprints on the porch. Bare feet, small, leading from the edge of the woods right up to the door, and the dirt was still damp. I checked around the cabin. Nothing. Just the whisper of trees and my own heartbeat echoing too loudly in my chest. Drove into town faster than I should have. The nearest diner was about 15 miles away. A place called Ruth's Diner and Coffee. The kind of small-town spot with faded curtains and a cash-only sign taped to the window. The waitress, maybe mid-50s, looked up when I walked in. "You're staying at Hollow Creek, aren't you?" She asked before I'd even said a word. That caught me off guard. "Yeah, how'd you know?" She shrugged, half smiling. "You look like someone who don't belong there." What's that supposed to mean? But she didn't answer right away. She poured my coffee, leaned closer, and said quietly, "People don't rent that place for long. Last guest left in the middle of the night. Didn't even ask for a refund. Why?" Her eyes flicked toward the window. "You'll see. You can't stay there long before the house starts showing you things." "What kind of things?" I asked. She hesitated. "Things that ain't supposed to have reflections." When I got back to the cabin later that afternoon, the light had turned golden. That soft, honey-colored glow that makes everything look warm and safe. But the mirrors looked wrong in that light. Every surface caught the sun differently, like they weren't reflecting the same world. The one near the front door showed the trees outside swaying gently. But when I turned to the actual window, the trees were perfectly still. That's when I started noticing patterns. Each mirror reflected slightly different versions of the room. In one, the chair was angled left. In another, the curtains were half open. And in one, the mirror above the fireplace, my reflection was smiling. I wasn't. That night, I couldn't resist testing something. I brought a flashlight upstairs, faced the large mirror by the bed, and spoke quietly. "Hello?" I tried again. "I know someone's here, just say something." My voice echoed off the wood, dull and small. Then a soft knock, not from the door, from inside the mirror. It came once, then again, louder. I stepped back, every hair on my arm rising. "Who's there?" And then I saw it, a hand pressed against the glass. Pale, slender fingers leaving trails of fog as they slid downward. I stumbled back, knocking the flashlight from my hand. It hit the floor, rolling, the beam spinning wildly. When I looked up, the hand was gone, but the fog on the mirror hadn't faded. Words had appeared again, faint but legible. "You're not alone, Mason." My throat went dry. I whispered, "Who are you?" No response, but in the reflection I caught a glimpse of movement behind me, a figure, standing in the corner. I spun around, and again nothing. Only the creak of the house settling. Only the mirrors glinting faintly in the dark. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat on the couch until morning. Lights on, coffee going cold in my hands. At 4:23 a.m., I checked the clock, and that's when I noticed something terrifying. Every mirror in the room, all 12, showed the same thing. Not me on the couch, but me, standing, facing the bedroom upstairs, as if I were still in there, still sleeping. I didn't realize I had fallen asleep until the sound of glass woke me. It was subtle, not shattering, not breaking, more like the sound of someone's fingers sliding slowly down a mirror. When I opened my eyes, the room was pale blue with early morning light. The air was cold enough to make my breath visible, and all 12 mirrors in the living room were turned toward me, every single one. Some had been nailed in place, others leaned against walls. None of them should have moved, but now they were facing the couch. Facing me, I sat up, heart thudding against my ribs, and said, "Okay, someone's screwing with me." I forced myself to walk toward one of the mirrors, the biggest one, the one above the fireplace. The reflection looked right. Same messy hair, same gray sweatshirt, same exhaustion behind the eyes, but when I blinked, he didn't. My reflection just kept staring. I froze, and then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was too slow, stretching too wide, like it was learning how to mimic a human expression. My body reacted before my mind could. I threw the blanket over the mirror and backed away. But when the fabric covered it, I heard a sound from behind the cloth, faint breathing, deep, slow, steady. I tore the blanket off, nothing there, just my reflection again. But now he wasn't smiling, he looked sad, and he mouthed something I couldn't hear. 3 words, over and over, "Let me out." That's when I decided to pack. I didn't care about the refund. I didn't care about explaining it. I threw my clothes into my bag and opened the front door, only to find something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Outside in the morning light, there were dozens of shards of glass scattered on the ground, like someone had smashed mirrors all over the yard. They were reflecting the sunlight in sharp, blinding flashes. But when I looked closer, I realized something horrifying. Each piece reflected something different. Not the house, not the trees, but me. And in every single reflection, I was standing somewhere else in the house, at the window, at the top of the stairs, in the bedroom, in the basement. My reflection wasn't broken. It was everywhere. I tried calling the host again, no answer. Then I checked my messages and froze. There were 3 unread texts from Evelyn. The last one was sent at 2:47 a.m. Evelyn, "Whatever you do, don't look in the bathroom mirror. Evelyn, if you see her, don't talk back. Evelyn, I'm sorry." I looked toward the hallway. The bathroom door was slightly open, just enough to see a sliver of the mirror inside. I wanted to run. Every cell in my body screamed to leave. But there was this pull, like the mirror itself was calling my name. The bathroom was colder than the rest of the house. The window was fogged. The sink dripped, each drop echoing too loudly. When I finally forced myself to look up, I saw something that made my knees weaken. The reflection wasn't mine. It was a woman, pale. Hair slicked back like she'd just come out of water. Eyes too dark, too hollow. She tilted her head, slow and curious. I whispered, "Who are you?" And her lips moved in perfect sync with mine, except when I stopped speaking. She didn't stop. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered, voice faint but clear. I stumbled back, slamming into the door. "This is her house now," she said, "and she likes how you look." Her smile spread until it cut too deep, and the lights above me began to flicker. I grabbed my bag and bolted out of the bathroom, out of the house into the daylight, gasping, shaking, half laughing from shock. But when I got to my car, the driver's side mirror showed her, sitting in the back seat. It took everything I had not to scream. I ran back inside, slammed the door, and turned every mirror around to face the walls. I sat in the center of the living room, whispering to myself over and over, "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." But the whisper came back, soft, gentle, from behind the wall of mirrors. "Then why are you here, Mason?" I didn't sleep that day. I didn't leave the living room. The mirrors all faced the walls, but I just knew, that whatever lived inside them hadn't gone anywhere. Hours passed. The sunlight faded to a muted gray, and the forest outside whispered with the wind. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow seemed longer than it should be. I finally pulled my laptop out, desperate to find anything about the house. Evelyn's profile gave me no clues. Generic photos, vague text, no other listings. Then I stumbled across a local news article from 3 years ago. Headline: "Young woman missing after checking into Hollow Creek Retreat." My stomach dropped. I read every word, my hands shaking. A guest had checked in, a woman named Marlene. She was never seen again. The police never found her body, but neighbors reported hearing strange noises, voices in the woods and lights flickering at the house late at night, and the mirrors. Neighbors claimed they'd seen reflections of people who weren't there. Everything started clicking in my mind. Evelyn wasn't the host, she was the house. Not literally, of course, but the mirrors, they weren't just reflecting, they were containing. I ran upstairs to the bedroom, my heart hammering. The large mirror above the bed now had a faint mist across the surface, fogged as if someone had breathed on it. I stepped closer and saw her, the pale woman, the one who had whispered to me, not through the mirror and in the mirror. She smiled, and this time I saw the truth in her eyes. She was trapped. Or something worse. A chill ran down my spine as I remembered the note Evelyn left. "If you see her, don't talk back." I swallowed, whispering, "Who are you?" She raised a finger, tracing a slow circle on the glass. Then, in a voice that wasn't a voice, more like thought, she said, "Marlene. And now, you belong too." The room went cold. My breath fogged. The mirrors across the walls started to ripple like water. I realized, too late, that every mirror was a door, and Marlene wasn't gone. She was everywhere. I ran for the front door, my shoes slipping on the old wood, but when I pulled the handle, locked. I hadn't locked it. The living room lights flickered, and then the mirrors reflected something impossible. Me, but not the me standing there. The me that had been watching, smiling, waiting. I stumbled backward. My reflection in the fireplace mirror stepped out, and I ran. The road back to town was blur. I didn't stop until I saw the diner's neon sign flicker through the trees. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I just told the waitress, "Get me out of here now." She nodded, not surprised, not shocked, just knowing. Later, she explained, Evelyn wasn't a person. She was the name the first guest had given the house when it consumed her. The mirrors didn't just reflect light. They reflected souls, and Hollow Creek Retreat was hungry. Every mirror held a story, a guest, a life. And now, for a moment, it had almost taken me. I never went back. I left my bags in town. Told the authorities nothing specific. They would never believe me anyway. But sometimes, in my apartment late at night, I see reflections that move slightly differently than I do. A corner of the mirror will ripple. A shadow will tilt its head, and I know. Some houses never forget. Some mirrors never forgive. If you think you're safe just because you're away, think again. Because some reflections follow you home, and for those who love dark stories like mine, keep watching. Because the shadows always have another tale to tell. The first night after seeing her in the bathroom, Mason didn't sleep. He sat in the living room, knees pulled to his chest, eyes darting between every mirror. The cold seemed to seep from the walls themselves, creeping under his skin, making him shiver even as he wrapped himself in a blanket. Each reflection, though still facing the walls, seemed to pulse slightly, as if the house were breathing. A slow, measured inhalation, followed by a trembling exhalation. He could feel it pressing against his consciousness, whispering that the house remembered everything, every guest, every step, every fear. The next morning, Mason forced himself to explore. He ran his fingers along the edges of the mirrors, inspecting for cracks, nails, or signs of tampering. But they were perfect, clean. polished to a degree that almost didn't seem natural. He moved around the room carefully, trying not to look at the reflections. But even with the mirrors turned toward the walls, he could feel them, watching, judging, mocking. He began to hear subtle sounds, footsteps upstairs when he knew he was alone, a soft scraping from the hallway, the faintest whisper, almost like a voice brushing against the back of his mind saying, "You shouldn't be here." The house was alive, or at the very least something in it was alive, and it was aware of him. In a desperate attempt to understand, Mason began documenting everything. He wrote down each noise, every flicker of movement in the mirrors, the way shadows seemed to shift without cause. He even began recording himself with his phone, speaking aloud his observations. Each recording became a chronicle of creeping dread, a testament to the fact that the house was more than walls and glass. Days blurred together. The house had a rhythm now, a cruel schedule of fear. Every morning the mirrors would subtly shift. Sometimes they were closer, sometimes they tilted at angles he hadn't left them in. He began to notice that some reflections weren't exactly him, slight differences. His hand raised differently, a flicker of a smile that hadn't been there before, a glint in the eye that was wrong. One night, he woke to the sound of breathing, shallow, deliberate, almost human, is coming from the hallway. He froze, heart hammering, and whispered, "Who's there?" The mirrors reflected nothing, yet he could feel her presence. That same pale woman from the bathroom. She was everywhere, yet nowhere. And Mason realized, with a chill that settled deep into his bones, that the mirrors weren't just holding her. They were holding everything, every guest, every moment, every fear. He decided to venture into the basement, a room he had avoided since arrival. The steps creaked under his weight, and the air grew colder with each descent. There in the dim light were more mirrors, hundreds, stacked against walls, leaning against one another, each reflecting fragments of a world Mason didn't recognize. In some he saw past guests frozen mid-step, mid-laugh, mid-scream, faces twisted in terror, eyes wide, mouths open as if to scream but forever silent. At first he thought he was hallucinating, but when he stepped closer, a figure moved. It was subtle, like the bending of a shadow. One of the trapped guests turned to face him. Mason stumbled back, gasping, the flashlight shaking in his hand. He realized that the mirrors were not just reflections. They were prisons, souls trapped within glass, forced to relive fear eternally. Over the following nights, the woman appeared more often. She no longer mimicked him but acted independently, moving fluidly in the mirrors while Mason froze in terror. One evening, she appeared in the largest mirror, perched in a corner of the living room. She raised her hand, beckoning him closer. "Come," she whispered, the sound echoing inside his skull rather than through air. "See?" Against every instinct, Mason approached. The mirror's surface rippled like liquid. He could see the room inside, empty yet alive with faint shadows of long-dead guests. And then he saw it, a diary floating mid-air. It was Marlene's, the woman who had disappeared years ago. Its pages turned, as if unseen fingers leafed through it, showing glimpses of her last days. Her handwriting was frantic, filled with pleas, with warnings. Do not trust the house. Do not look in the mirrors. It watches, it waits, it feeds. Mason's hand shook as he touched the mirror. The surface was cold, unnaturally so. His reflection stared back, and then blinked. The blink wasn't his own. The reflection smiled, slow, knowing, terrible. As the nights wore on, Mason's perception of reality began to crumble. Every surface seemed reflective now. Windows, screens, even his spoon in the kitchen. Shadows danced where they shouldn't, angles warped, and sounds arrived slightly before their source. He couldn't trust his eyes, his ears, or even his memory. Sleep became impossible, and each attempt to close his eyes only summoned vivid dreams of mirrors cracking open and hands reaching out. One evening, Mason found an envelope tucked under the door, yellowed, no return address. Inside was a photograph, him standing in the living room, taken from an impossible angle behind the mirrors. On the back, a single sentence in red ink, "You belong." Panic seized him. He packed frantically, determined to escape before the house claimed him. But when he tried the door, it wouldn't budge. The locks were old, yet somehow reinforced. The windows refused to open. The mirrors shifted to block his path, corners bending impossibly to reflect endless hallways. And then he heard it, the whispering. Hundreds of voices, layered, rising in pitch, repeating his name. Mason! 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 The pale woman stepped from one of the mirrors. She moved gracefully, almost floating. Her eyes were deep wells of despair and malice combined. She reached out, hand trembling in the air, and Mason felt an invisible force pushing him toward the mirror. He fought, tearing away, diving toward the far end of the room. The mirrors quivered like water disturbed. Every reflection twisted, showing him not as he was, but as he feared. Trapped, helpless, a guest of Hollow Creek Retreat. Desperate, Mason grabbed a hammer from a forgotten toolbox. He began smashing mirrors. Each crack was a scream, each shard a chorus of trapped souls screaming with him. But even as the glass shattered, new reflections appeared. New faces, new hands reaching, pulling. The house was infinite, the mirrors endless. Finally exhausted, Mason hurled the hammer at the largest mirror. It shattered with a deafening crash. The room went silent. The house itself seemed to exhale. When Mason awoke, he was outside. The house was gone, the forest around him quiet as if it had never existed. He ran to the nearest town, shaking, covered in cuts and bruises, haunted by the knowledge that the house could return at any time. Weeks later, Mason moved to a city far away, cutting off all ties. Yet sometimes in his apartment he would catch glimpses, reflections that lingered too long, shadows that didn't match their owners, whispers when the rooms were empty. And he knew. Hollow Creek Retreat wasn't finished. Some houses never forget, some mirrors never forgive. The shadows, he realized, follow those who survive.